have is the municipal government in Canada and what it means to be a small C Conservative when it comes to municipal government. In Canada, Preston is very fond of pointing this out, that we have 308 elected members of Parliament and fewer than 1,000 MLAs, and this seems to be where we spend a lot of our time and energy and resources focused. And yet we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25,000 elected municipal officials across the country, and that's if you exclude school boards. And if you think that, for a moment that there might be 3 to 4 people on average contesting every given seat, you're probably looking at close to 100,000 people in any given electoral cycle across the country who either consider or actually get to the point of putting their name on a ballot. So when you think about the grand pool of people who are involved and so forth, that's a lot of people, and there really isn't a strong small C Conservative, or hasn't been a strong C Conservative vehicle for whether it be training or developing policy and so forth up until now, and thus the Municipal Governance Project at the Manning Centre. One of the challenges, of course, is the various challenges of municipal government are, first of all, that it's got the fastest growing area of both spending and taxation. While the federal government and provinces are doing what they can to actually restrain either the growth of spending or restrain actual spending, municipal government is constantly increasing spending, and they talk about infrastructure deficits and so forth. And whether these are real or imagined, we never really actually get to have that debate. But there is a constant constantly increasing demand for infrastructure spending. Secondly, as Monty said, the locus of control is great. He talked about Calgary, for instance, and whether or not there's snow clearing. Sometimes governments and municipal governments do what you want, and sometimes they don't do what you want, and sometimes they do things you don't want them to do. But every single thing a municipal government does affects your lives in a very direct way. It's, the bus service in your town or city, garbage collection, street paving, snow removal, parks, you name it. Just even sometimes what kinds of trees and where they go. I live in Victoria, and we have my daughter's laughing here. We have a law about protecting the Garry oak, and we've got these like oak trees, and you can't cut a tree limb if it's so big and whatever. Anyway, actually, I think that's provincial, but you get these sorts of what tree goes where and how. Right down to that level of control, and whether or not you have a cow pasture a block and a half away from you in a residential neighborhood, for instance. The third challenge in municipal government is that it is largely controlled by the left. The left in this country and perhaps elsewhere tend to be highly active in this area and treat it as a training ground for moving people up. If you look at municipal and federal government, they tend to be quite populated by former municipal politicians. And just to give you an example of where that's turning the other direction, as Monty mentioned, I was recently involved in the BC election, where quite a number of our successful MLAs, our successful first-term MLAs, came from the municipal realm. We have at least, I believe, 3 former mayors and a number of former councillors, and roughly a third of the caucus is comprised of former municipal legislators. But I think BC is an anomaly in that area, where we've got a lot of people who have kind of come up through the ranks, and that came through some active recruitment at the provincial level of folks who would be interested in that. But the left are actually much more successful doing that than anyone on the more conservative side. And here's an example of what's going on the other side. The Broadband Institute has conducted trainings in both Saskatoon and Toronto. And recently in Toronto, they mentioned that their objective was to ensure that we elect a progressive and effective mayor in Calgary, mayor and city council. Toronto. I'm ahead of myself here. So they're looking at electing quote unquote progressives to city council and mayor to Narrowton. You all know what that's code for. And so they did a little training in Toronto, and they did another one in Saskatoon this year. I guess the point here is that this is the single greatest threat to small C Conservatives and the single greatest opportunity, because we're not exploiting the opportunity at this point to the extent that we can. On an ideological basis, one of the things that we face is at the provincial and federal level, there's a general consensus that increased spending and taxation and deficits are bad. At the municipal level, they don't tend to have deficits, but they do tend to have spending increase and taxation increases. And the discussion around taxes every year at the municipal level isn't whether, it's how much. So, you know, we look at this challenge and say, okay, well, what do we do about this? And as I mentioned, it's the sandbox to the left. So let me talk a little bit about the approach to government, to municipal government and our project itself. I just want to get this all to come up here at the same time.